I hate to say it, guys, but there are only so many cryptocurrencies that actually matter. The ones that matter, the real ones, have been able to maintain relevance through crypto bull markets and crypto winters again and again for years because of their fundamental properties, not their appeal as part of the latest trend. On this criteria, Cardano is one of the few coins that actually matters. Ready? Let's go. Today, we are going to discuss Cardano's staying power in the top 10, some speculation about certain Cardano projects, Marlowe plus GPT, Binance bailing on the Voyager deal, and more. If you are altogether uncomfortable with how tightly our friend here is holding that one trophy, or if you're finding value in these videos each weekday, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. Cardano, well, as he often does, made a really good point today. He pointed out that Cardano is the 7th biggest cryptocurrency in the land. It's in the number 7 spot on the CMC charts, or thereabouts on whatever alternate chart you like to use because you hate Binance or something, and CoinMarketCap is owned by Binance now. But it's around number 7. And in the chart that everybody seems to look at, which is CMC, it's number 7. This means it's really number 5 if you take out the two biggest stablecoins, Tether and USDC. So the only cryptocurrencies that are bigger than us are Bitcoin, Ethereum, Binance, and XRP. This is interesting because of where Cardano was exactly 5 years ago. Here it is, CMC, exactly half a decade ago, 26 April 2018. There you see it, Cardano in exactly the same place, Cardano number 7. What's striking about this, though, is how different everything else is. Well, almost everything else. You notice in the top 10, the only names that are still there are XRP, Ethereum, and Bitcoin. You notice everything else is different. We've got Bitcoin Cash in there, EOS, Litecoin, Stellar, IOTA, Neo. Then outside the top 10, we've got Tron, Monero, Dash, Neem, Tether, Ethereum Classic Tether, now in the top 10, Ethereum Classic, VeChain, Quantum, Omise Go, Binance Coin, Clara here at number 20, Icon, Bitcoin Gold, Lisk, Zcash, Verge, Steam, Bytecoin, Bitcoin Private, Bytum, Nano. That takes us all the way out to the number 30 spot. None of these names, I mean, some of them are familiar to us as being within the top 20 today, but a lot of them are very different. And in the top 10, the only continuity we see between a half decade ago and today are Cardano, XRP, Ethereum, and Bitcoin. There's a reason for this. I won't comment on XRP here. XRP has sort of been frozen in time by the SEC litigation, which has also sort of galvanized their community, having this great enemy, this great challenge in the SEC litigation. So I won't comment on XRP, but if we look at the remaining 3 projects that have shown continuity over the last half decade, we have Cardano, Bitcoin, and Ethereum. And those 3 coins have a lot in common compared to a lot of these other projects. Obviously, Cardano and Ethereum are not the names of the coins in those projects, but you know what I'm saying. So if we think about those 3 projects, though, what we see is a great amount of decentralization and a lot of fundamental strengths that align with sort of the original ethos of crypto. Whereas with a lot of these other projects, we don't necessarily see that. What we see is, in some cases, the project attempting to capitalize on some trend, something trending at the time, back in 2018 that didn't have the same staying power as sort of following these fundamental, elements of, the crypto ethos, things like decentralization and, sovereignty, financial sovereignty, these kinds of things. We also see projects that sort of just piggybacked on the success of other projects. Obviously, with some of the very first altcoins were pretty much just forks of Bitcoin. And what we saw is in the early days, they saw a lot of success because they were sort of an alternative to Bitcoin, but that didn't necessarily provide them with a lot of staying power. Same thing goes for Gen 2. There were a lot of projects that were basically just some kind of a copycat project or some kind of a fork of Ethereum. They were like, oh, sweet, smart contracts, EVM, account balance, great idea. I'm just going to do exactly that with some tiny twist. Some tiny twist will be the Ethereum of blank. We've got a lot of projects like that. Some of them don't exist anymore. Some of them, went on to great infamy. Not naming any names, Tron. But we've seen a lot of copycat projects of the first generation of crypto and the second generation. And we've also seen, in conjunction with a lot of the sort of forking and copying of concepts in different projects, we've also seen one of the great mistakes that has been made time and time again in crypto, and that's the cash grab. Maybe the best way to not having any staying power in crypto is to just turn your project into a cash grab. And the best way they do this is by doing the opposite of what Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano did. In the case of all three of those projects, what you see is the team behind the project giving themselves a small percentage of the available coins. In the case of Cardano and Ethereum, that was under 20%. In the case of Bitcoin, Satoshi didn't pre-mine anything, didn't give himself anything. He just mined it like everybody else could have. Granted, he was kind of, part of a very small group of people who even knew about Bitcoin in the early days, so it was much easier to mine. But Bitcoin ended up being owned by Satoshi to a much smaller level than a lot of these other projects. Same thing, of course, with Ethereum and Cardano, where it's much easier to compare because the founding entities of Cardano and Ethereum, of course, reserved some of the coin for themselves, but they kept it small, under 20% in the case of both of those projects. Whereas with a lot of the subsequent crypto projects, those numbers were almost reversed. Insiders and VCs and early investors ended up with something that looked more like 80% of the project, with the public getting less than 20%. This, of course, runs very contrary to the whole ethos of crypto. It's like cuts against the whole idea of crypto. The idea of crypto was not trading, the TradFi institutions and the central banks for VCs and teams of software devs. I don't think it's as big a difference as crypto would like to pretend it to be. The idea of having a central party that's controlling everything or controls, 80% of the money, I don't think it matters to the average person. I mean, it looks a lot better if it's crypto. If you're a crypto person, you'd much rather be in a crypto ecosystem. But when you think about what actually happens, the negatives related to having a central party that controls everything, it doesn't really matter if it's a central bank and a bunch of TradFi institutions or if it's a team of software developers and a bunch of VCs. They're still humans who are in control of everything, and you're going to have the same pitfalls because humans are prone to things like greed and the pursuit of, crushing power, all of those things. The only way to prevent this is to not have a party that controls everything so completely, that controls 80% of the monetary supply. Anytime you have that, you're going to have problems. You're basically recreating the traditional finance system and all of the, all the uneven playing ground and, unequal opportunity and inequality and the lack of egalitarianism, all of those things. You're just going to recreate them if you have some elites controlling 80% because they were insiders, they were part of the software development team, or they were vendors to the software development team, or they were financiers of that development team. We shouldn't be trying to trade one set of elites for another in crypto. We should be, compacting that elite class, diminishing that elite class, keeping it as small as possible. The whole idea was to make things more egalitarian, more equal. That's what Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano did. But a lot of these other projects, they were like, oh yeah, egalitarianism. We're going to talk about that too. That'll be a big part of our propaganda. We'll have like a lot of talking points about that. But really what we're going to do is we're going to be the central bank now. We're going to be the TradFi institutions. We're going to control everything, but it'll be great because not only will we control like 80% of the monetary supply, we'll also control how everything works. We'll control all the infrastructure, all the software, all the GitHubs. We'll control everything. So in a lot of ways, with a lot of these projects, their big downfall is not only are they, in control of the entire monetary supply, but they also control even the software, even the logic of the whole system. You could argue that the US Fed does that by controlling things like ACH and FedWire and all the Fed payment systems to some extent too. But I would argue that in the case of a lot of these projects, they have even greater control of the ecosystem. And that's why they haven't had the kind of staying power of projects like Cardano, Ethereum, and Bitcoin, where instead of doing that whole thing, where they went for control and power and, all of the money, all of the greed, they kept themselves under 20%. It's a very different perspective on the world and how an economic system should operate. And that original vision of crypto has led to staying power for projects like Cardano, Ethereum, and Bitcoin. And for these other projects, not so much. On to Cardano rumors and speculation. As always, I'm not going to be presenting any of the following as fact. We're going to be looking at people's discussion of this topic. I don't know if what they're posting is true or false. I haven't verified any of this. We just don't know. But I think this issue and this discussion is important enough that it should be on our radar. So let's take a look. So this post says, what are your all's thoughts on this? And then they're reposting someone else's post to this effect. Here is your frosty wonder boy dumping 285,000 ADA worth of CNETA for the last few months. Now defend this blatant scam to my face one more time, Anon. And then they post a screenshot from Tap Tools. And of course, this kicks off a discussion of the extent to which it's appropriate for projects to be selling off their own tokens, and some people come down on the side of they shouldn't be selling their tokens. They're dumping on the heads of retail kind of thing. And then other people are saying, well, you got to pay developers and developers can be expensive. How are projects supposed to, pay developers if they can't sell off their own token? That's sort of their fundraising mechanism. And of course, we're not even talking about the regulatory implications of all this, and all of those kinds of things, but just sort of as a principle, is this okay? And it's a pretty good discussion, people coming down on both sides of this. Simultaneously, that same project was involved in another discussion. This poster says, these ADA projects may all be made by the same team. And the list of projects he's citing are CNETA, TeddySwap, Cherryland, and TozyDrop. Frosty has been accused of dumping CNETA. Obviously, he's referencing the discussion we just looked at. There's allegations that dev funds are drying up. Be careful with your bags. And if we go down here in the discussion a little bit further, you can see this video where someone is showing us what appears to be some pretty significant similarities in the websites of those projects. So again, it's hard to tell. It's always hard to tell what's going on whenever these kind of controversies pop up especially in these early stages when this kind of speculation or allegations kind of pop up. It's hard to tell what's actually going on, but I think it's important to be aware of these kind of things. It's important to have this kind of stuff on your radar. And of course, I don't think we need to have the conversation about lobster traps for the 80th time here, but even in the bear market, you got to keep those little lobster claws tight. You got to keep those ADA tightly clenched in your lobster claws because there will be a lot of lobster traps, even in the bear market. Also today, Charles was involved with a live webinar. It looks like it was put on by Fundstrat Insight. And as always, Stake with Pride pulled some beautiful little gems out of this. The first one being that Cardano's self-sovereign identity solution, Atala Prism, is being open core adopted by an unannounced large open source foundation. So this is pretty interesting. I think we've all kind of been waiting for something to happen with Atala Prism. It looks like IOG is sort of handing that over to some mystery open source foundation. So excited to see what that turns into. And this part is even more exciting to me. Charles also said ChatGPT will be used for Cardano's no-code, low-code smart contracts. That would be Marlowe. So they're talking about combining GPT and Marlowe. That makes me excited. That could be some explosive generation of contracts, smart contracts, which, people are pointing out that could be good or bad. There could be a lot of really bad contracts developed that way. But I think whenever you have a greater volume of things being created, the chances of these beautiful little gems being created also increases. So while I'm sure that will enable people to create some really bad smart contracts, it'll also probably enable people to create some smart contracts, which will underpin some really useful and great dApps. I think no code and low code solutions are definitely the future. And the second AI came along, I've talked about this before, but the second AI came along, it made it super clear to me that that's going to be even more the case, because AI is already pretty good at coding, and it's going to get even better. It's going to make it so that pretty much anybody can accomplish certain things that previously would have required a certain amount of expertise in coding. AI is going to be able to do that for you. So I think no code, low code solutions might in the future just kind of become synonymous with AI. Finally, we're in kind of an interesting place as far as the relationship between US regulatory authorities and large, very wealthy exchanges with big war chests, big litigation war chests. So the big two ones right now are, of course, Binance and Coinbase. And Binance is in the news today. So the CFTC came out and had some things to say about their dealings with Binance. So Kristen N. Johnson, commissioner at the CFTC, had this to say: the regulator has been in conversations with Binance to address its concerns about the company's conduct. She said the regulator hopes to find a path forward in the legal battle with crypto exchange Binance. However, at this stage, there is no immediate path forward. And CNBC here reminds us that the CFTC sued Binance last month, alleging the platform solicited users in the US through its platform and allowed them to trade derivatives despite not being authorized to do so. So this is the CFTC coming out and saying, hey, Binance, we're kind of negotiating with you, but we don't see that you have an immediate path forward here. Of course, Binance had something to say about that today. CZ, of course, is no fool, and he knows exactly how to strike back. This came out today from Binance US. Binance US has made the difficult decision to exercise its right to terminate the asset purchase agreement with Voyager. Of course, Binance was the great hope to save Voyager. While our hope throughout this process was to help Voyager's customers access their crypto in kind, the hostile and uncertain regulatory climate in the United States has introduced an unpredictable operating environment impacting the entire American business community. Of course, this is going to be a great talking point for the other side of the aisle when they want to attack the current administration on its treatment of crypto, which of course they should be. Even members of the administration's own party is attacking the current administration on its treatment of crypto, as they should be. And this is a great example. The brighter minds keep saying, hey, this is an important nascent industry. You're going to force it offshore. And here we have exactly that. The great savior of Voyager has just left that deal. They're refusing to do that deal because they say the US regulatory climate is hostile. Hopefully examples like this will have some kind of effect on Washington, but we'll see. Hope you're having a great week, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.